Thank you so much for hosting. This is such a wonderful program. I'm really excited to be involved. My whole approach as an artist is searching for empowerment through storytelling. So as opposed to some artists who just have one medium, I have a variety of different mediums, and those include performance art, interactive technology, book art, photography, writing, and a number of other outlets. So this is going to be a rapid fire view through my work. So here are some of the things I've done as an artist. This is just a short list of some of the approaches and experiences that I've had. My first performance was based on my love of Berlin. I was living in Berlin at the time, and I was really interested in how all of the metro stations kind of have their own unique look. And so I created this pageant, this beauty pageant called Miss U-Bahn, where various contestants could choose a model, and that model would embody the metro station. So this would be sort of similar to having like a Miss Bart competition if you're from the Bay Area. And then this competition had as most beauty competitions have, a fashion show, a Q&A, a talent show, and a swimsuit competition. And it was public art, so free to come and free to participate. I've also done an IKEA slumber party. So I'm really interested in the idea of people taking back private space. And so for this, I encourage people to come into the IKEA bedroom showcase in their pajamas. And then at a set time, we all like jumped into the beds at IKEA. And we also did a live reenactment of Where the Wild Things Are, and I got to read Goodnight Moon through a megaphone. While I was doing these sort of more fun projects, I was also living in San Francisco, and like many artists, didn't have a lot of money, was living in an area that was a little stressful. Every day when I was walking down the street, I would get harassed, and so street harassment was a constant part of my life. One day I had a particularly stressful incident where a group of men followed me to my car and wouldn't let me leave, and one of them had a knife. And I felt very threatened, very stressed, and I managed to get away and get out of the situation, but I was so mad, I was so angry. And I just didn't really know what to do with all that anger. And so what I decided to do was create this poster, and this is based on real catcalls. And so if you can read this, it kind of goes from, hey, I just want to talk to you, to some pretty, pretty grim stuff. And this is to really share what catcalls actually are like, that they're not just whistling and they're not harmless. So I took this poster, I put it up on Tumblr, and I put it there with the words print, paste, and pass along, with this encouragement for people to share. So I created this poster that's called Street Harassment is Not a Compliment, and it includes real catcalls. I encourage people to put it up on Tumblr with the text print, paste, and pass along. And then when I ignored it for 9 months, I forgot that I had done this. And then I went back and I actually saw that it had been shared 25,000 times, and people had been putting this up at bus stops and around town. So it was actually a very successful piece. And it made me think, oh, well, I'm not the only person who is interested in these issues. There are a lot of other people that are also outraged about this phenomenon. So I created this work called I'm Not a Cat. And basically I interviewed different people at a festival about their experiences with street harassment. And then I recorded one way their responses to someone who's a street harasser. So I asked them, if you could respond one way, what would you say? And then I took all of those recordings and I put them on the recording for a voicemail message. And then I had this number printed on a letterpress card with this idea that you could pass along the card to someone who is persistently calling you. And then instead of getting your voice, they would hear this response from all these people who were speaking about their outrage about the behavior. To Skin a Cat Collar is another piece that I've done about street harassment. This was an endurance performance that took place in a gallery that was facing Valencia Street in San Francisco. And I printed 255 real catcalls around the gallery and then navigated the space for a period of 8 hours. And while I was doing this, the catcalls played over a loudspeaker as well. Again, this was documenting the fact that street harassment is an ubiquitous phenomenon, and it also is not as polite and nice as people think it is. It's actually something that really contributes to people's psyche and to their idea about themselves and their esteem. Around this time, I started an organization called Art Against Assault, and Art Against Assault is an organization that encourages survivors of sexual domestic violence to make artwork about their experiences. And this is not only to break down that barrier of silence, but also to raise funds for rape crisis centers, which are really, really necessary because it allows them to have this flexible funding in order to help other individuals. One of the premier projects of Art Against Assault is called Jarring 3, and this is a set of artist books that I created by hand, and they share the stories of 22 survivors of sexual assault. So the first book of the series is how each survivor's experience began, and it's using a tunnel book format. It's also using a dry stamp, which is very lightly using ink on the page. And then the middle book, the tunnel book, or the flag book, shares words and phrases related to each survivor's experience. And then the last book, which was the hardest to figure out the form because every survivor's reflections were so different, were their reflections at the time of submitting their story. And this is actually a work that incorporates glass. And so glass is built into the structure of it to show that it's being recreated and from this metaphor of the jar. Another book I've made is called Book Reads You, and this is an interactive book. And so there's a acrylic illuminated book that's on a pedestal. And then in the pedestal, there is a connect. And the connect is reading joint data. And then from that joint data, it's creating a story about the movements of the person in front of the book. And that's read out loud to them. So it really is a book reading them. Another book that I've made that's an interactive book is called a systole, and a systole is a 3D printed book where it's investigating heart health and heart disease. So my cousin passed away at a pretty young age, and in order to really reconcile with the heart attack that she suddenly had, I decided to research heart attacks and heart health. So I created this book, which has different pieces that you can see that rotate around this spine, and underneath each piece, which is a waveform of a kind of heart attack, there's a photocell or light sensor underneath, and as the page is turned, then it plays a sound sample of that waveform. At the same time, there's a connect that's reading the data in someone's face using this process called Eulerian video magnification. And so you can actually tell someone's pulse from slowing down and enhancing a video feed. And so that's sonified while the person is reading the book. So it becomes this duet between the person and the book. And then another performance I want to share with you is 109 Seconds Invisible Weight, and I probably don't have enough time to go into it, but there's more of my work that you can see on my website, which is mirabellejones.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram.
When you do the cat callers in San Francisco, about what audience experience and how they respond like to that piece, because it's in the street window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on my my website, there's actually a write-up of the experience, so you're welcome to read that too. But this was a piece that I didn't really expect to blow up in the way it did. So this actually like went viral, and it was a bit overwhelming because it just like it went all over the place. And it was, again, this like confirmation that there are other people, not just me, thinking about this issue of street harassment. And that was also replicated in my experiences with people while I was doing the performance. So for example, there were some people that would come by where I could see that they were really connected to the piece and that it touched upon experiences that they'd had. And there were also people that would leer at me. And there was someone with a camera that was like shooting me like this. And there was one man that stood and like licked his lips for about 10 minutes until my assistant came out, and he naturally thought like, oh, well, this is this person's boyfriend, and so I'm gonna run away. So it was a mixed response, and I think the response was really telling actually about how we treat this issue in society.
Your work is really powerful and really makes a difference. I think all of the above. I think any woman has experienced all of the above. And it's really strong. I think the book and also doing the heart attack, I mean, it's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting doing presentations about my full work because I feel like part of me really misses the sort of frivolous work that I used to do, where it was more about fun and play. And I've been trying to bring that back into my work while keeping that meaningfulness intact. And so more recently, I've been working with technology pieces that really address some of the issues that we have with data and surveillance and privacy, but also like examining it from a playful perspective. So my most recent piece, Zoom Reads You, actually is like Book Reads You, but is investigating Zoom fatigue and how is reading everything that's within the frame of Zoom, which is, you know, just a face usually, and like maybe some gestures. So it's a lot of facial recognition and like facial expression that's triggering a narrative. And it's actually really uncomfortable to experience because Zoom is uncomfortable to experience.